I stared at the test results in disbelief, my hands trembling. Eli's blood type was AB. How could that be possible when both Nolan and I had type O? The implications were staggering, and I felt my world starting to crumble. "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper as I faced the stern-faced doctor. "Eli's blood type can't be AB. That's not possible." The doctor shook his head solemnly. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Parker, but the tests were conclusive. Your son's blood type is definitely AB." I sank back into the chair, my mind racing. How could this be happening? Nolan and I had been together for over a decade, and Eli was the product of our loving marriage. Yet this medical anomaly threatened to shatter everything I thought I knew. Just then, the door burst open, and Nolan stormed in, his face twisted with rage. "What the hell is going on, Jenna?" he demanded, his eyes narrowing. "The nurse said Eli's in the ICU and that his blood type is AB?" I steeled myself, knowing I had to be honest, even if it meant facing Nolan's wrath. "Yes, that's right. The test results are conclusive. Eli's blood type is AB, which is impossible given our own blood types." Nolan's face turned beet red, and he slammed his fist against the wall, making me flinch. "Impossible? The only thing impossible here is that Eli is my son. You've been unfaithful, haven't you, Jenna?" "What? No, Nolan, that's not true," I protested, my heart racing. "I would never do that to you or to Eli. You have to believe me." He let out a harsh laugh, shaking his head. "Believe you? How can I, when the evidence is right in front of us? Eli's not my son, which means you've been lying to me all this time." Tears welled up in my eyes as I reached out to him, desperately trying to make him understand. "Nolan, please, you have to listen to me. I would never cheat on you. Eli is your son. I swear it. There must be some other explanation for this." But Nolan was having none of it. He backed away, his face contorted with a mixture of hurt and anger. "Save it, Jenna. I've heard enough. I'm going to get a DNA test, and then we'll see who the real father is. And if Eli's not mine, well, let's just say you better start planning your future without us." With that, he stormed out, leaving me shattered and alone, my world turned upside down. I had to find a way to prove my innocence and save my family, no matter what it took. As I sat there, the weight of the situation pressing down on me, I knew one thing for certain: my life would never be the same again. The tension between Nolan and me had been simmering for years, but I never imagined it would boil over in such a devastating way. As I sat in the hospital, my mind raced, trying to make sense of the chaos that had erupted. Nolan's accusation of infidelity stung like a slap in the face. After all we'd been through together, how could he so easily dismiss my loyalty and faithfulness? But I knew his outburst was fueled by more than just the revelation about Eli's blood type. I thought back to the early days of our marriage, when Nolan's overbearing mother, Marge, had made my life a living hell. She was never satisfied, always finding fault with everything I did. No matter how hard I tried to please her, it was never enough. Marge had passed away a year ago, but her lingering influence still seemed to haunt our relationship. Nolan had always been quick to side with his mother, even when she was clearly in the wrong. It was as if he couldn't see past her manipulations, and I often felt like an outsider in my own home. Now, with Eli's unexpected blood type, Nolan had found the perfect excuse to turn on me. I knew I had to fight back, to prove my innocence and protect my son. I decided to seek legal counsel, determined to navigate this treacherous situation with a clear head and a solid strategy. As I waited in the attorney's office, I couldn't help but reflect on the numerous times Nolan had threatened to take Eli away from me. "If you ever step out of line, Jenna, I'll make sure you never see that boy again," he'd growl, his eyes dark with menace. The thought of losing Eli was my greatest fear, and I knew I had to do whatever it took to keep him safe. When the attorney finally arrived, I laid out the entire situation, leaving no detail untouched. She listened intently, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This is a very serious situation, Mrs. Parker," she said, her voice grave. "With Eli's blood type not matching either of yours and your husband's volatile reaction, we're looking at a custody battle that could get ugly." I swallowed hard, steeling myself for the fight ahead. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to protect my son and prove my innocence. Nolan's accusations are completely unfounded, and I won't let him take Eli away from me. The attorney nodded, a glimmer of respect in her eyes. "Good. We'll need to start gathering evidence." including your medical records and any documentation that could shed light on Nolan's family history. If there's a discrepancy there, it could be the key to unraveling this entire mess. I felt a surge of determination. I'm ready. Let's do this. As I left the attorney's office, I knew that the battle lines had been drawn. Nolan's threats and Marge's lingering influence had only fueled my resolve. I would fight tooth and nail to keep my family together, no matter the cost. The drive home from the attorney's office was filled with a sense of urgency and determination. I knew that time was of the essence if I wanted to clear my name and keep Eli safe from Nolan's threats. As soon as I walked through the door, I headed straight to my home office, determined to start gathering the evidence I would need to build my case. I started by pulling up Eli's medical records, scrutinizing every detail, searching for any clues that could help explain the mysterious blood type discrepancy. But as I pored over the documents, I hit a wall. There was nothing out of the ordinary, no obvious explanations to be found. Frustrated, I decided to turn my attention to Nolan's family history, hoping that might shed some light on the situation. I began scouring through old family photos and documents, piecing together the puzzle of Nolan's past. It was then that I stumbled upon a curious letter, hidden away in the back of a desk drawer. The envelope was addressed to Nolan, but it had never been opened. My heart racing, I carefully tore it open, my eyes scanning the contents. What I read made my blood run cold. The letter was from Nolan's estranged aunt, Clara, and it contained a bombshell revelation. Nolan had been adopted as a child after being found abandoned. The details were sparse, but the implications were staggering. I quickly dialed Clara's number, my hands trembling. When she answered, I wasted no time in getting to the heart of the matter. "Clara, it's Jenna. I need to talk to you about Nolan. I found your letter, and I need to know the truth about his adoption." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost feel Clara's hesitation. "Jenna, I knew this day would come," she finally said, her voice heavy with regret. "Nolan's adoption was always a closely guarded family secret. Marge made sure of that." I gripped the phone tighter, my heart pounding. "Then it's true? Nolan was adopted?" "Yes, it's true," Clara confirmed, her words laced with sadness. "Nolan was found abandoned as a baby, and my brother and sister-in-law Marge adopted him. They never told him the truth, and Marge made sure no one else in the family ever breathed a word of it." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. If Nolan had been adopted, then that meant... Oh my God, Clara, Eli's blood type. It all makes sense now. "I'm so sorry, Jenna," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is a terrible situation. I didn't know how to tell Nolan the truth, and now it's come to this." I took a deep, steadying breath, my mind racing with the implications of this revelation. "Clara, I need your help. I have to prove my innocence, and Nolan's adoption is the key. Will you testify to what you know?" There was a long pause, and then Clara's voice filled with resolve. "Yes, Jenna. I'll do whatever it takes to help you and Eli. This family has kept this secret for too long, and it's time the truth came out." As I hung up the phone, a glimmer of hope began to take root. With Clara's testimony and the evidence I'd gathered, I might just have a chance of proving my innocence and protecting my family. But the road ahead would be anything but easy. The drive to Clara's house was filled with a mixture of anticipation and dread. I knew that the information she possessed could be the key to unraveling this entire mess, but I also feared the fallout that might come from the truth being revealed. As I pulled into her driveway, I steeled myself, determined to get the answers I needed, no matter how difficult they might be. When Clara opened the door, the sadness in her eyes was palpable. "Thank you for coming, Jenna," she said, ushering me inside. "I know this isn't going to be easy, but I'm glad you reached out." We settled into the living room, the air thick with tension. I wasted no time in getting straight to the point. "Clara, I need you to tell me everything you know about Nolan's adoption. The truth could be the only thing that saves my family." She nodded solemnly, taking a deep breath before speaking. "It all started with my brother, Nolan's adoptive father. He and Marge had been trying for years to have a child, but it just never happened. Then one day, they found a baby abandoned in a park. That baby was Nolan." I felt a lump forming in my throat as Clara continued. "Marge was over the moon, of course. She saw it as a miracle, a second chance. But she was also terrified that the truth would come out, that Nolan would someday discover he was adopted. "So they kept it a secret?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Clara replied, her eyes filled with regret. "Marge made sure no one in the family ever breathed a word of it. She was convinced that if Nolan found out, he would be devastated and that it would ruin his life." I shook my head, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. But that's why Eli's blood type is AB, isn't it? Nolan's not his real father." Clara nodded solemnly. "I'm afraid so, Jenna. Nolan's true blood type is AB, which is why Eli's doesn't match yours or Nolan's. The secret has been buried for so long, and now it's threatening to tear your family apart." I felt a surge of anger, mixed with a deep sense of betrayal. All this time, Nolan has been accusing me of infidelity, when the truth is he's not even Eli's biological father. I clenched my fists, my eyes narrowing. "And Marge, she must have known. She's been tormenting me all these years, hasn't she?" Clara nodded solemnly. "I'm afraid so, Jenna. Marge was ruthless in her determination to keep this secret hidden. She saw you as a threat to her perfect little family, and she did everything she could to make your life miserable." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, the gravity of the situation finally sinking in. This is unbelievable. Nolan has to know the truth. He deserves to know who he really is. Clara's eyes widened with alarm. "Jenna, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Nolan has always been unstable, and this revelation could push him over the edge. You need to be careful." I shook my head resolutely. "I don't care, Clara. I have to tell him. The truth is the only thing that can set us free from this nightmare." With that, I rose to my feet, determined to confront Nolan and finally put an end to his baseless accusations. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to risk it all to protect my family and reclaim my own integrity. As I drove back home, my mind raced with the implications of what Clara had revealed. Nolan's true blood type, his secret adoption. It was all too much to process. But I knew I had to act quickly if I wanted to protect Eli and clear my name. I pulled into the driveway, steeling myself for the confrontation that was to come. Nolan was waiting for me, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Where have you been, Jenna?" he demanded, his voice dripping with accusation. "I've been trying to reach you all afternoon." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm. "I've been speaking with Clara, Nolan. There's something we need to discuss." He scoffed, his arms crossing over his chest. "Clara? What could that old bat possibly have to say that's worth my time?" "It's about you, Nolan," I said, my voice steady. "About your past, about the fact that you were adopted." The color drained from his face, and for a moment he seemed at a loss for words. "What are you talking about?" he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "The truth, Nolan," I replied, my gaze unwavering. "Clara told me everything. How you were found abandoned as a baby, how your mother, Marge, made sure the family kept it a secret all these years." Nolan's eyes widened, a mix of shock and rage flickering across his features. "You're lying," he shouted, his fists clenching at his sides. "This is just another one of your pathetic attempts to turn me against my own family." I held up a hand, silencing him. "I'm not lying, Nolan, and I have proof, a letter from Clara confirming everything she told me." He stared at me, his chest heaving with each labored breath. No, this can't be happening," he muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. "But it is, Nolan," I said, my voice tinged with sympathy. "And it explains Eli's blood type. You're not his biological father." The realization hit him like a punch to the gut, and he staggered backward, his face contorted with anguish. You cheated on me," he gasped, his eyes wild with accusation. "This is all your fault." I shook my head, refusing to back down. "No, Nolan, Eli is your son, but not biologically. You were adopted, and that's why your blood types don't match." He stared at me for a long, tense moment, his breathing ragged. Then, without warning, he lunged forward, his hands closing around my throat. "You bitch!" he snarled, his grip tightening. "You're trying to take everything from me!" I clawed at his hands, gasping for air, my heart pounding in my ears. Just then, the door burst open, and a group of people rushed in. A mediator, a court-appointed guardian, and my attorney. "That's enough, Mr. Parker," the mediator said, her voice firm and commanding. "Let go of your wife, and we can discuss this like civilized adults." Nolan's grip loosened, and he backed away, his chest heaving. I coughed and sputtered, my hands trembling. What is the meaning of this? Nolan demanded, his eyes darting between the gathered group. We're here to help, Nolan, I said, my voice hoarse. I've arranged a mediated meeting so we can discuss Eli's future and resolve this situation in a constructive way. Nolan's eyes narrowed, his expression twisted with suspicion. You're up to something, Jenna. I can see it in your eyes. I met his gaze, my own eyes steely with determination. Yes, Nolan. I'm going to prove my innocence and protect my family, no matter what it takes. The mediated meeting was tense from the moment we all gathered in the conference room. Nolan sat across from me, his arms crossed over his chest, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. The mediator, a seasoned family counselor, introduced herself and set the tone for the proceedings. All right, let's start by getting everything out in the open, she said, her voice calm and measured. Jenna, you've requested this meeting to discuss some important matters regarding your son, Eli. Would you like to begin? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that was to come. Yes, thank you, I replied, my gaze locked with Nolan's. As you all know, Eli's recent hospitalization revealed a concerning discrepancy in his blood type. It's come to my attention that Nolan was actually adopted as a child and that his true blood type is AB. Nolan's face drained of color, and he shot to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor behind him. This is outrageous, he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Jenna is lying, trying to twist the truth to suit her own agenda. The mediator raised a hand, her expression stern. Mr. Parker, please sit down and allow Jenna to continue. We're here to have a constructive dialogue, not hurl accusations. Nolan reluctantly complied, his jaw clenched tightly, his eyes smoldering with rage. Jenna, please go on, the mediator prompted. I took another deep breath, my gaze unwavering. Nolan's aunt, Clara, has confirmed that Nolan was indeed adopted as a baby, and that his blood type is AB. This explains why Eli's blood type doesn't match either of ours. Nolan is not Eli's biological father. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Nolan's face was a mask of anguish and disbelief, his hands trembling. No, this can't be true, he stammered, his voice breaking. You're trying to destroy me, Jenna. You've always hated my family, and now you're using this to take Eli away from me. The mediator held up a hand, her expression sympathetic. Mr. Parker, I understand this must be a difficult revelation, but we need to remain focused on finding a resolution that is in the best interest of your son. Nolan shook his head vehemently, his eyes wild. Best interest? Jenna's the one who's betrayed me, betrayed our family. She's been unfaithful, and now she's trying to take Eli away. I felt a surge of anger and frustration. Nolan, I've never been unfaithful to you. Eli is your son, just not biologically. Your own family has been keeping this secret from you all these years, and I'm trying to bring the truth to light for all of our sakes. The mediator nodded, her gaze shifting between us. Clearly, there are deeper issues at play here that need to be addressed. Jenna, you mentioned having evidence to support your claims. Would you be willing to share that with us? I reached into my bag and pulled out the letter from Clara, handing it to the mediator. This letter from Nolan's aunt, Clara, confirms his adoption and the fact that his blood type is AB. It's the proof I've been searching for to clear my name and protect my family. The mediator scanned the letter, her brow furrowing in concentration. Nolan watched, his face a mask of anguish and disbelief, as the truth of his past unraveled before him. This appears to be a legitimate document, the mediator finally said, her voice grave. Mr. Parker, I'm afraid the evidence presented here does substantiate Jenna's claims. Nolan's world seemed to crumble before my eyes, his carefully constructed reality shattered beyond repair. As he sat there, his body shaking with a mix of emotions, I knew that the tide had finally turned in my favor. The aftermath of the mediated meeting was nothing short of explosive. Nolan, reeling from the revelation of his adoption and the truth about Eli's paternity, had spiraled into a state of emotional turmoil. As the mediator's words sank in, his face contorted with a mix of anguish and rage. He pushed himself away from the table, his chair clattering to the floor as he paced the room like a caged animal. This can't be happening, he muttered, his hands trembling. It's all a lie, a conspiracy to destroy me. The mediator tried to interject, her voice calm and measured, but Nolan cut her off with a vicious swipe of his hand. No, you listen to me, he shouted, his eyes wild. Jenna has been unfaithful, and she's using this nonsense about my adoption to take Eli away from me. I felt a surge of anger and frustration, but I forced myself to remain composed. Nolan, please, I pleaded, my voice steady. This isn't about taking Eli away from you. It's about protecting him and our family from the truth you've been hiding all these years. Nolan's gaze locked with mine, his expression contorted with a mix of hurt and betrayal. Protecting him? He spat. You're the one who's been lying, Jenna. You've betrayed me, and now you want to take everything I have. The mediator intervened, her voice firm. Mr. Parker, I understand this is an extremely difficult situation, but we need to remain focused on the best interests of your son. Attacking your wife is not going to solve anything. Nolan's nostrils flared, and for a moment I thought he might lash out again. But then something seemed to shift in his demeanor, and he slumped back into his chair, his head in his hands. This can't be happening, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. My whole life has been a lie. I felt a twinge of sympathy, despite everything that had happened. Nolan, I know this is hard, but we need to find a way to move forward for Eli's sake. He lifted his head, his eyes filled with anguish. Move forward? How can I, when everything I thought I knew has been ripped away from me? The mediator leaned forward, her expression grave. Mr. Parker, I understand your pain, but the well-being of your son must be the priority here. Jenna has presented evidence that casts serious doubt on your biological relationship to Eli. We need to explore options that will ensure his stability and safety. Nolan's gaze darted between the mediator and me, his expression shifting from despair to rage. Stability and safety? You think I'm going to let Jenna take my son away from me? I steeled myself, knowing that the battle was far from over. Nolan, I'm not trying to take Eli away from you, but I need to ensure his well-being, and that means proving my innocence and getting full custody. Nolan's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a snarl. Over my dead body, Jenna. I'll fight you tooth and nail, and I'll make sure you never see Eli again. The mediator tried to interject, but Nolan was having none of it. He pushed himself up from the table, his chair clattering to the floor once more. This is not over, he growled, his gaze fixed on me. I'll destroy you, Jenna, and I'll take everything you hold dear. With that, he stormed out of the room, leaving me trembling with a mix of fear and determination. I knew that the war had only just begun. The aftermath of the mediated meeting was nothing short of chaos. Nolan's emotional unraveling had shaken me to the core, and I knew that the legal battle ahead would be an uphill climb. But I was more determined than ever to protect Eli and secure our future, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce in full custody of Eli, presenting the overwhelming evidence that had been uncovered. Nolan's erratic behavior and threats only served to bolster my case, and the court ruled firmly in my favor. As the judge delivered the verdict, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Eli would be safe, and Nolan's control over our lives had been shattered. The settlement was substantial, a testament to the emotional distress and defamation I had endured. With my newfound financial freedom, I was able to leave our old life behind and start anew. I found a cozy little house not too far from Eli's school and set about creating a peaceful, nurturing environment for him. My family and friends rallied around us, offering their unwavering support and love. Eli, bless his heart, had weathered the storm with remarkable resilience. He seemed to sense the change in the air, the newfound sense of security and stability that enveloped us. Gone were the tense, uneasy silences that had once permeated our home, replaced by the sound of Eli's laughter and the gentle hum of our daily routines. As for Nolan, he had become a shadow of his former self. Stripped of his business and his financial resources, he struggled to find his footing. Attempts to reconcile with Eli were met with fierce resistance, and Jenna's pleas for visitation rights were repeatedly denied. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the man I had once loved, but any trace of that emotion was quickly drowned out by the memories of his cruelty and the trauma he had inflicted. He had chosen his path, and now he had to live with the consequences. In the weeks that followed, Eli and I began to heal, finding solace in the simple joys of our new life. We would spend lazy afternoons in the park, Eli's laughter ringing out as he chased after butterflies. At night, we would curl up on the couch, sharing stories and dreams, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. Slowly but surely, the wounds of the past began to mend, and a sense of hope and possibility took root in my heart. I knew that the road ahead would not be an easy one, but with Eli by my side and the support of my loved ones, I felt an unwavering determination to build a future filled with love, security, and the promise of a fresh start. As I tucked Eli into bed one night, his eyes sparkling with contentment, I couldn't help but smile. We had weathered the storm, and we had emerged stronger for it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew that we would face them together, united in our resilience and our unwavering love.